The bribery trial of Formula One boss Bernie Ecclestone has opened in Munich. The 83-year-old billionaire has dominated the sport for years, with governments around the world kowtowing to secure races for their hometowns. Australia has not been immune, with the annual tussle to keep the Grand Prix in Melbourne. But in the latest saga to afflict the colourful billionaire, he's in court in Germany, accused of bribing a German banker to secure the sale of a stake in the Formula One group to a buyer he favoured. Now, it's alleged he did that to ensure he was retained as F1's chief executive. Bernie Ecclestone has admitted paying the banker, Gerhard Grybkowski, who is serving a jail sentence for receiving the payment, but Ecclestone has denied any wrongdoing. If he's found guilty, he could face up to 10 years jail and lose control of the very sport he revolutionised. Christian Sylt is a Formula One journalist and co-author of Formula Money, an F1 online industry monitor, and he joins me now from London. Good morning and welcome to RN Breakfast.
Hi, good morning.
The first day of the trials ended. Tell me what's happened.
It's generally just an introductory day today, I think, really. So nothing particular in terms of major developments, but there's certainly talk of documents coming out over the coming weeks, which will contradict some of the claims that have been made by Grybkowski in the past, which is that Ecclestone paid him money to steer the sale of F1 towards CVC. So I think it's kind of like forward-looking as to what will happen, or indeed what may come out in future. But so far, really, it's just been setting Ecclestone's position out, which is that he denies the charges against him.
So take me through the charges. What allegedly took place and why?
Yeah, essentially, the key charge really at the heart of all of this is that Ecclestone and his offshore family trust paid a total of $44 million to Grybkowski. Grybkowski was basically just a banker in charge of selling a controlling stake, or at least he had a controlling stake in Formula One, the bank did, and essentially the charge against Ecclestone is that him and the trust paid $44 million to the banker behind the bank's back, so that he would agree to selling the bank's stake in F1 to a company of Ecclestone's choosing, and crucially it was going to be a company that will keep Ecclestone in his job. That is the charge against him, which he denies. And
tell me, what is Grybkowski's position, the banker?
Well, it's an interesting one, really, because Grybkowski, back in 2012, was sentenced by the same court and the same judge that is overseeing the case against Ecclestone. He was sentenced to 8.5 years in prison for receiving the money which was declared to be a bribe. So really you would argue that that doesn't look good in itself for Ecclestone. The interesting thing is that when the case against Grybkowski began, which was in circa November 2011, Grybkowski began by pleading innocent, and he said that the payments he received were for consultancy agreements that he had with Ecclestone and the family trust. He proceeded to say nothing really over the first, I think, 6 months of his court case, and then it was pointed out to him, which is a very strange process, but this is what happened, that if he gave a confession, his jail sentence would be reduced, and he gave a confession, and lo and behold, he was put in prison.
Does Bernie Ecclestone deny giving him the money at all?
Well, the interesting thing on that is that, no, Ecclestone and the trust admit to paying or having paid Grybkowski, and Ecclestone says that the reason this was done is because Grybkowski was threatening, so he says, threatening to tell the UK tax authority that Ecclestone himself was in control of the trust, and if Ecclestone denies that is the case, that he was in control of the trust, but he says this was what Grybkowski was threatening to do if he wasn't paid the money, essentially blackmail. And if Ecclestone was found to be in control of the trust, there would be serious tax implications for him. He's a UK taxpayer, whereas the trust is based offshore, hasn't paid any tax on the $4 billion that it has in its accounts, which is raised from selling stakes in Formula One. Now, the beneficiaries of the trust are Ecclestone's ex-wife and his two daughters, or two of his daughters, and the trust itself, as I said, is sold stakes in Formula One, raised $4 billion, no tax has been paid on it. It's based offshore. Ecclestone is based in the UK. If he was to be found in control of the trust, he'd have to pay 40 or so % tax on it. Now, he says he's not been in control of the trust at all, and he says that Grabkowski, despite this, was threatening to tell the tax authorities that he was in control. That would have triggered a huge investigation.
Dear, oh dear.
That would have been very expensive and time-consuming and costly for him, so he paid him off instead of letting him carry out his threat.
If it takes us that long to run through the defence on Breakfast Radio, I can only imagine how long this trial is going to run. Regardless of the outcome, do you think this is the beginning of the end for Bernie Ecclestone? Is it inevitable that he will lose control? Just quickly.
No, I think basically this, if all we can say at this stage is that it's a chink in his armour, really. I mean, he's kind of had a bit of a bulletproof impression. The perception of him is that he's bulletproof, but I think this effectively shows that he does have these vulnerabilities.
Thank you so much for joining us, Christian. I'm glad you've got that forensic understanding of it. It sounds like you're going to need it.
No problem. Thank you very much. Happy to help.
Christian Sylt is a Formula One journalist and co-author of Formula Money, an F1 online industry monitor. 6:26 now.